Hello and welcome to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. My name is Matt Ham. With me every week is Kevin Adams. Bring it up top, baby. Oh, in studio high fives. Welcome to the show. This is the Standard Glass Studio at Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Shout out to Nick Craig in the studio helping us produce today. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. The show is rebroadcast every Sunday from 12 to 2 on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM and where all great podcasts are found on iTunes. Check us out, Wake Up Our Faith. The show is made possible by our corporate partners. I want to recognize our good friends at Seacoast Skin Surgery, Dr. Greg Veman there, and he also has a fantastic ministry, Everlasting Strength. Dr. Veman's very cool story and just a great man. We appreciate him being a part of the show. If you want to reach out to he and his team or learn more about his ministry, reach out 910-256-2100. Kev, happy Wednesday.
Is it Wednesday? We broadcast on Sunday. I never know what to say. I guess it's kind of just honest to say we record on Wednesday.
What day is it? It's funny. We've gone through these iterations with the show.
Right.
We originally had this
as live. Yep.
Yeah, it was a live AM Monday, Wednesday show in the mornings.
Right.
And then it went into Sundays at 1 hour, and then it moved.
The bishop.
Yeah, the bishop. That's right. Man,
he would come in and interrupt us. We'd be doing a real serious dialogue.
If you guys knew this guy.
Matt.
If you guys knew this guy over here, we're in the middle of a conversation, and Kevin's like pulling out this deep thought. Somebody walks in the room, and Kevin starts going, what's going on? Okay. Yeah. It was hilarious.
It's my Achilles. You want a Mona Lisa thought? I'm going to give it to you, but if a fly comes in and starts buzzing, I'm out. I'm done, man. I admit it freely.
Oh man, it's beautiful. What's cool about it though, Kev? What I have really learned to appreciate here. So I'm reading this book called Shoe Dog, which is the story of Phil Knight. It's his memoir. He was the founder of Nike, and we talk about faith in business. So I think this is appropriate for our listeners. I was reading this book, Shoe Dog, and when you see Nike, you think, well, Nike is Nike. I mean, it's this giant company. It's this iconic company. I mean, of course, they didn't struggle. I mean, look at them. They're where they are. You think this in your head.
Right.
When you read this memoir, man, you see just persistence over years, and you see humble beginnings out of the trunk of cars and, credit lines to buy shoes and import them from Japan. And and I think about our radio show where it started and the ceiling tiles were falling in, like we always say, and it creates a warmth in my heart to understand, man, God's doing something so cool here.
Oh, yeah. That
we can really stick our stake in the ground and say, guys, we're a part of something special.
I'm on a Mexican radio. Sorry, it just popped in my head.
What is that?
You never heard of that?
I mean, Mexican radio.
Wall of Voodoo, man. 1983, 4, something like that?
No clue.
I'm sorry.
No clue.
It does your heart good.
It does my heart good just to know that humble beginnings matter. And, and encouragement to people out there who we're about people chasing their passions, and when you start off in this place of like, God, what are you doing, God? Or why am I going through the struggle?
Yeah.
God's always bringing it about. He's always purifying it.
Well, that's something that I think we should get into because it involves the idea of purpose and how it actually arrives and how it doesn't arrive. And, there's a lot of things out there and courses and programs and whatever, and it doesn't. People go through them and they don't get the idea of they come through it, and I ask them, and I've been doing this for years, and they say the same thing. Do you know your purpose? And they say, well, not really, and so we'll get into that, but that's a good topic, and that leads to that.
Yeah, I think so. The underlying theme here is that in a culture that tries to monetize purpose, nobody's really finding it, right? I mean, that's why Rick Warren's book is Purpose-Driven Life, however many copies have sold, People have read it.
Right.
People have had access to the Bible for years, right?
Right.
And yet they still don't understand their purpose. And you, as a purpose coach, for lack of a better, that's what you do.
I had to go through it.
You're right.
Myself, and then I can teach people. This is how this works, and it's not easy or simple, but it's infallible. It's perfect because it comes from God. It's a different thing than somebody getting a nuance or an idea and then creating a course around it. That's not what we do. We do create courses, but it's got a whole different model to it. It's more of a heavenly model and biblical, and it's just we can get into it, but yeah.
Well, let's kind of kick off with me. So we're in the first segment here. We've got plenty of time today. You guys will be here for a couple of hours. We appreciate those watching online on Facebook. Thanks for jumping out, shouting at us. We see you back. So Kev, purpose, right? Big, giant kind of question. But let's start at a foundational piece. What is purpose?
Oh, man. What is purpose? I have great purpose. Oh, wow. Well, it's such a big old subject. I've got a ton of things written down over the years about that because people desperately need and want that more than anything else. What it comes down to is value. What is your value? And it's not that everybody truly wants purpose. It's almost a bad word anymore because it's like white bread. I mean, it's just mediocre. Purpose. But when you think about what is your heavenly value on earth, that has a different connotation to it. And that's one of the things that we have, kind of our gifts and what we do is so different than church or business or Tony Robbins or any of that stuff, is we just force absolute clarity and we get to it and we do it doggedly like Jesus with firm joy, tears, but also the power. And it's amazing, but it takes a lot of hard work. So we walk with people. But purpose really, maybe the simplified answer is it's an earthly problem we've been designed and appointed to solve. It's from heaven into the earth, and you have to look at it that way. It's from God. You're not of the world, or you're not supposed to be. You're of heaven.
All right, let's pause there for a second. I'm sorry. There's a lot to dive into there.
Sure.
And I want to be clear to our listeners that are watching this, and this is kind of where we're coming from, is we have, we have somebody online here repeat this. A great question is, what is your heavenly value on earth?
Yes.
That is what we're saying purpose is about.
Right.
We've got to start talking about it differently. We've got to come at it from a different perspective.
That's right.
We got to see it as done in heaven, then coming through us onto earth, and we get to step into this shape. So as we clarify this for folks, this isn't a problem to solve. It's not a Rubik's Cube kind of thing to figure out.
That's right.
That you perfect by, your action or whatever. Yeah. It's something you yield to.
Exactly. And I'm not saying programs and training and all that's bad. It's not bad. It kind of sets the tone. You need to get your heart right and all that. But in order to really know why you're here, which is the greatest question a Christian can ask, why am I still here after I'm saved? Well, you get a lot of those common answers. I'm supposed to go seek and save the lost. And well, all that's good, but it gets down to a very personal, very distinct thing, just like your fingerprint. You're different from your brother, sister, mom, or dad, or friends. How are you different? So when you let go of all those things for a minute, you can ask somebody, what's your purpose? They'll go, well, I'm a mom. That's my purpose. Well, that's not your purpose, because if you didn't have your kids, then you'd be worthless. And that's just not the case. Liz, for example. Liz is an amazing lady. And I've just grown to love her, and Holly and I both do. But she's got so much inside of her to offer. And I think a lot of her right now, she's so busy because she got all these this gang of wonderful kiddos, but you have to be able to take those away for a minute in your mind, not for real, like they're amazing, but you have to spend some time away from them in your mind. So I'm just giving an example of. And this takes a lot of work and practice and coaching and discipleship. But if Liz can separate for a little while what she'll come to is she'll start getting back to the thing in her heart. And, you've told me some different things about her. She loves to paint, and she just loves people and women in particular. And she's got a rebelliousness that's a healthy thing. And she was almost a pro-level athlete, Division I college. I mean, all these are wonderful things. You can't just sweep them under the rug because you have kids. So that's an example of clearing things off, getting back to who you are. God cares more about who you are than the things you do.
Yeah. So. Great thoughts. We appreciate you guys jumping on today. This is Wake Up Our Faith. Matt Ham and Kevin Adams here with you today. Going to be here for the next 2 hours. Appreciate you guys tuning in, jumping on. Want to encourage you on the break, check out the Portable Faith community. It's how we connect with folks, give you content to help you walk through each day. WakeUpMyFaith.com. We'll be back for more right after this. Hello and welcome to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams with you every single week, coming to you live here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Live streaming from the Standard Glass Studios at Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7 FM. We'd like to kick kick off each segment by recognizing our corporate partners. These are friends of the show that make this possible. One of those being Freeman Landscaping. Freeman Landscaping is the largest privately owned land and irrigation firm in Eastern North Carolina, family owned and operated since 1992, and they are all big Wolfpack fans. Shout out Wolfpack Nation. I'm sporting my Wolfpack gear today. If you need any residential or commercial landscaping needs, feel free to call Freeman Landscaping, 910-796-1166. Appreciate those of you tuning in here. Kevin, today we're talking about the giant question that we seem to see in culture a lot, purpose, and we are reframing it differently today through the lens of your heavenly value on earth. I love where this is going. Last segment we ended, we were talking about, you're talking about Liz, my wife, and you finished with a thought. I want to go back to that thought. It's not about what you do.
Yeah, well, it's you have to kind of strip everything down to who you are, and instead of what you do. And our tendency is to identify with what we do. Okay, and that's good to a degree, but really who you are is the only thing that no one can take from you. So if you have a job, most people do, adults, we identify ourselves with that job. Or, what's the old elevator speech? I can remember back, especially, when I was coming up, the big thing to say, the first thing to say to anybody is, what do you do?
What do you do?
Right? And if you're a Christian, it might be, where do you go to church? You say, bless you. Where do you go to church? Like, it has nothing to do with anything.
Culturally, we've defined ourselves with limiting metrics, and it's based on doing and going instead of being.
Yeah. So think of it this way. Picture a couple of this is going to be weird, but picture a couple of
ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Adams.
Yeah, right. Welcome to my world.
Lovingly.
Can you speak French? Yeah, I mean, I can say a couple words, right? Qu'est-ce que c'est or something like that, but
I don't know.
We don't speak French, all right? But we can picture a French couple talking, having interaction. And it's probably like, if you're watching a movie and it's in French, you just go, I can't do this. Even subtitles, this is not fun. And nothing against French people. That's just a language you and I don't know. Now they have a baby. It's an infant. That baby is making noise. That noise is cooing and doing that thing, that little breath they catch. Now that baby sounds exactly the same in Korea, in France, in Spain, Siberia. That baby is exactly the same. What is that? That's who we are. That's how God sees us. I'm not talking about being an infant. I'm talking about strip away the things that block everything. Well, it's French. Do you understand? This is a deep thought, but that baby, there's a pure thing that's common everywhere, the way it coos.
Yeah, I think to me the way I'm feeling this, and I received that, what I'm feeling is there are these cultural, stereotypical identities that we've placed on ourselves based on geographic location, based on work, based on cultural, based on how we were raised, what denomination we were brought up in, and all of this stuff is that school bus to, it's the minivan to school bus. These are layers and layers and layers of how we identify ourselves. And we're saying get back to the purest part, the essence of what God spoke into you. If you're created in His image, what did He put in you when He put His,
Everybody knows what that cooing means. Everybody loves that. Everybody can identify. If that's a little Asian baby and I don't speak, Mandarin, it doesn't matter. I feel that child. I can feel it. And it's beautiful that we have to go there. Yeah. Because that's how God sees us. Childlike, free, set free. And so I know that sounds weird, but if we can go back to that place every day or weekly and practice this thing where we can let go of all of our responsibilities just for a little while, what we can do is begin to remember who we truly are and then build everything back up from there. Then it's healthy.
Yeah. You said the greatest thing you have is who you are. And so the great question is then how do I discover who I am? What is my heavenly value, right? And so that's where we run into people all the time and say, well, how do I do this? How do I do this? And so, creating a trajectory of helping people understand what this is, but then a trajectory of how to get to this place is what we're about as an organization. But for the purpose of our listeners today, you know what I mean? Where are we moving?
Porpoise.
What's the porpoise?
Sorry.
Man, I love you. How are where are we going with helping people navigate this process of discovery?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of nuances here, and we cannot get through all of them in one sitting. But here's a helpful idea. Faith, it has to be your foundation. So faith seeks intimacy, but not familiarity. Faith is not about familiar, but it is about intimacy. Now, those two things are different, but we sort of lump them together.
Okay, I'm gonna pause there for a second. So, if discovering identity is rooted in faith,
yes,
okay, if we're saying
absolutely.
Faith is the process, it is the conduit by which identity is discovered.
Yes.
Okay, so then we're taking a step sideways and saying, now faith is not familiarity, it's intimacy.
Right.
Let's break that down.
Well, God is intimate. We can be intimate with him, but he's not familiar. We cannot be familiar with him. He's God. I mean, it's an ant trying to understand the internet. I say this all the time, but he gives us intimacy. So it's kind of like the idea of eating from his hand. If we're willing to go there, if we press into intimacy, he'll give us that. It's like when you're that baby. You can't possibly understand everything your mom or dad knows, but you know your mom or dad intimately. Your mother holds you, right there in her bosom. Man, that's the sweetest place for a child. But a father protects, and that's just wonderful. So it's very intimate. It's very carefree for the child, but there's not a whole lot of familiarity. And what I mean by familiarity isn't intimacy. Again, it's not touch, that kind of familiarity. That's a different thing. We're talking about the knowledge.
Okay.
You see, familiarity is, there's an old saying, it says it breeds contempt. We get too familiar with God, at least we perceive that, and we just dust him off and act like he doesn't exist.
So if you're saying that faith is how you discover identity, that faith is established not through familiarity with God or knowledge of God or exposure to the things of God, it's actually intimacy with God. It's community with him. It's relational with God, not familiarity with the things of God. And that brings about this thing in culture, which is like proximity to the things of God does not equate to a relationship with him.
Yeah, we cannot know God, but we can know God. Now that sounds crazy. We have to know him a different way, because only through that faithful, look, you can't please him without faith. That's a dividing line between what does please him and what doesn't. So we have to start there. But it's like stepping into a relationship with the creator of everything. I mean, think of the depth and the size. He describes himself as I am. The biggest thing there is, uses two of the smallest words to describe himself. I mean, that's some amazing thought. Anyway, we want a relationship that we can feel our way through with God, because that's how he speaks to us. He lives in our spirit, not in our mind. Now, he gives us thoughts that renew our mind. Scripture renews our mind, But and I don't want to get too deep, but we'll come back.
Yeah, well, we got plenty of time to dive into this. And I love where we're going with this because we want to wake up. Excuse me. We want to wake everybody up to a different process. We've been going at it the same way. We've got to come at it from underneath. We've got to come at it from around the corner.
Right.
That's what we're doing today. Appreciate you guys joining us for Wake Up Our Faith. We'll be back for more right after this. Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams with you every single Wednesday, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. The show is rebroadcast on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7 FM every Sunday from 12 to 2 p.m. Want to encourage you to check out the Big Talkers weekday lineup. They have Joe Catanacci, Chad Adams in the mornings. The afternoon, they have Dave Ramsey and the Sean Hannity Show. Great folks here. We appreciate Nick producing the show in the studio. Kevin, today, before we jump in the segment, want to recognize our corporate partners, and one of those being our exclusive mortgage partner here. This is Chris Hutchins with Guaranteed Rate. Chris has been in the mortgage business for more than 20 years. He's got a fantastic team, fantastic company there at Guaranteed Rate. If you're looking to buy a home or refinance your home, or you need any kind of advice in a mortgage capacity, Chris Hutchins is the guy to call. 910-344-0304. Many thanks, Chris, for being a part of what we're doing here. And Kev, today we are talking about the giant topic of purpose from a fresh perspective, right? From a fresh angle. Yeah. And I love this because everybody talks about purpose, but everybody's also still searching for it. So it stands to reason that we need a fresh kind of take on this. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about it. So we talk about purpose, instead of thinking as purpose as what's my purpose? What's my purpose? Right. Rephrase the question to what is your heavenly identity? What is your heavenly value here on earth? Right. And attacking that through the conduit of faith. Because faith is how you discover purpose. Right. But then you said something to me during the break, and that's where we're going to go into this segment. Let's continue to come at this from a fresh angle today.
Yeah, well, it's a big subject, so it's really difficult, especially for me, because I like to build a whole forest and look at every tree. But we're just trying to give some nuances here, just to help people whet their appetite, help them understand that this is a radically different approach than creating some course or monetizing the word purpose, or some training or whatever, and just saying you're going to walk out and know who you are. That is not how this works. And what we have to do is we have to go back to what do we see from the truth, from Scripture, right? And so we build off of that. So it's not a Bible lesson, but that's our template. Yeah, it's the foundation. This is what we have to emulate. Not something else. So anyway, yeah. So the idea is intimacy and familiarity are two different things. We cannot know God. We cannot know the whole of God, but we act like we do. And when we do that, we tend to brush it off like, okay, I got the bag of chips, I got the T-shirt, I've been a Christian forever, I go to wherever, Baptist or Presbyterian, and I'm done. And
I know God loves me, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so we go, my purpose, we do the same thing. We start plugging back in those attributes that are what we do every day. Or even more intimately, slightly more intimate, is being a parent or a husband or a wife or whatever. And it's just, those things are all blessings and wonderful things that God's done for us and even through us. But that's not who we are. God uses who we are, but who we truly are is what we are, God's expression on the earth to accomplish something. And it really, really matters. There's one of the texts we put out a while back, this thing God put on my heart. There is a vacancy in history that you are meant to fill. I love that. And that's it. You got to do it. But God will allow you not to do it. So, but the way to understand, and we can come back to this, there's so much stuff here. The simple way to understand how you get there is through the avenue of faith, and that creates intimacy with God like a child, which is what Jesus says, right? Come to me like a child.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go back to this thought. There's a vacancy in history for you. And that's so powerful for us to really, really wrestle with. Because if you woke up every day believing that you are fulfilling a vacancy in history, that, man, you would wake up with passion. You would wake up with value. You would wake up with energy and excitement instead of saying, oh, well, I'm just a banker. Or, oh, well, I remember Dad, or
Yeah.
oh well, I'm just an insurance agent or whatever. I mean, and I know for so long what that felt like. And it's funny. I was before we got on the show today. I was having coffee with somebody and ran into an old friend, and they said, "How are you doing?" And it's always funny. They act like, "How are you doing?" Like it's like I've lost a loved one or something. I'm like, "I'm doing great." I'm doing wonderful. And and I said that. For so long, I lived underneath this expectation of who I had to be based on what I did, based on my job performance. And God, I know what it's like to the business person out there who feels the pressure of, this is what I do. I have to provide. I got to do this thing. And I'm just in this grind. I'm in this routine. I'm stuck in this rut. And I just want you to hear and just know from the depth of my heart that God created you for more than just your economic value to your family.
Yeah.
He created you for more than just a transactional relationship with the company you work for to get a paycheck. He created you for more than that.
That's right.
And you got to know that. And when you do know that there's a vacancy in history that you get to fill.
Yeah.
Just boom. So wake up with that. Now, sorry, I went off on a little bit, but
That's all right.
I got fiery. You get there through intimacy.
Yes.
And that's what we're driving at here.
Right.
And what we want people to read is stop searching for your purpose and start seeking intimacy. That's the directive.
Yeah, and here's why. You're God's idea. You are His idea, and you were created with great intention. That's either true or it's not. And if it's not true, we just need to give up and go home and just do whatever feels right and good. But that's not the case. God is not only more powerful than us, but way smarter. He did this. He had great intention. That matters. We have to honor that by stepping into it. But the way to it isn't intellect. The way to it isn't our will and all of these things, this soulish things. The way to it is yielding, not striving. The way to it is yielding our will, pressing into the deep desires of our heart, which is a whole bigger thing. But what God does is with intimacy, He begins to strip away the things that are of the world. And they're not necessarily bad things, but he flips everything back over so that we can actually do what it says in Romans 8. Those who are led by the Spirit, these are the sons of God, meaning the sons and daughters, those who are led by the Spirit. So we have to be led by the Spirit. How does that happen? Intimacy. And but intimacy, I'm just making a distinction that it is not familiarity. It's not studying the crud out of your Bible every day out of duty or checking it off or whatever. That's not the right approach. The right approach is going after God's personality, trying to experience Him intimately as a father toward a child, going after Him that way. And, I've got a lot of thoughts about that, but think about it this way. In Proverbs, it says it's the glory of God to conceal a matter, but it's the glory of a king to search it out and uncover it. So God wants us to participate, so He hides just out of sight or just out of earshot, spiritual earshot, so that we'll get up and go after Him. So intimacy, part of what intimacy is pursuing God through thanksgiving, through, just like Sarah James may follow you around in the house just because she just wants to be near you. How much do you love her, right? And I'm just talking about father-child relationship. So, and it's father-mother, all that's, but that is intimacy, and that's affection, and that's what God looks for from us. We don't start with good behavior. That comes from that. So familiarity is just this logical set of rules which we think we can box Him into. And I'm telling you, when we let go of that, there's no contempt. We don't think we have it.
Yeah.
We never have it. We can't know Him.
Yeah. I get this picture right now that, and this is something we've shared in one of our encouragements, in one of our texts and one of our challenges. I think when people begin to search for God as much as they're willing to search for their purpose,
yes,
then they'll find their purpose.
because that was his intention.
Right. And I think that's the important thing to gather here, is that when we go after God, because we believe and understand that he created us, we're his idea, that we have the same goals. When you get through all of the fluff and you understand that I don't have to be afraid of God, because this is where I think this is where culture is, though, Kev. I really do believe that we're in a culture right now that is truly afraid of God, because we've been brought up to say that there is this separation, there's this dividing line, and we're getting ready to go to break.
But we can talk about that.
You can't be afraid of the one who wants nothing but victory for you.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, guys, you're watching and listening to Wake Up Our Faith. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams will be back for more right after this. Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenges common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams with you every single Wednesday. Appreciate you jumping on. Kev, man, today's conversation, well, all of our conversations are great, but today just feels very fresh. What I love about it is it's just different, right? We're coming at this, which I love about us. When I say us, I mean our organization, Uprint. We come at this from a fresh perspective, and it's funny. I meant to tell you this, and I forgot to the other day. Who was that I was talking to? I can't remember who. Oh, I know it was. It was a neighbor. Ran into a gentleman in the neighborhood. He's kind of a CEO. Just moved to town, and we were talking. He said, "Tell me what you do again." And I was telling him and all this kind of stuff. And he I mean, genuinely, he goes, "That's brilliant." He's like, "I'm sitting here going, something like that doesn't exist. You know what I mean? To like bridge this gap between faith and business, and you know what I mean? Bring this kind of, because he even said, he goes, man, I'm the CEO, and I'm not the religious type. I mean, I love how people say this with these kind of quotation marks on their fingers. I'm not the religious type. He said, but when I was pursuing my job here, I mean, he come to Wilmington, he's like, I prayed about it. Mm-hmm. And he said, and I just felt like, God, whatever, I felt like God was leading me here. Mm-hmm. I felt like he had something in that for me. And he said, as I've stepped into that, I've just seen that things have worked out, and it's just been good. And what I'm saying is I'm like, yeah, man, we're just bringing context to that, mm-hmm. because you're a CEO who is saying that he prays about things, and we're just saying don't be afraid right. of that God that mm-hmm. that you're praying to. Yeah, like sure. he has the same goals as the desires of your heart. Right. And so today we're talking about purpose, coming at it from the mm-hmm.
standpoint
of intimacy. And let's kind of wrap this up in this final hour to give folks who've been following along some context for approaching this from a fresh perspective.
Yeah, well, think of it as a seed. A seed doesn't labor. It just grows. So purpose is born. Purpose is birthed. It happens through us. It's not something we go out and do or that we achieve or that we can even get our mind around. It's something that God has already put in us, and there's a lot of markers along the way, and but the very first thing is to understand the difference between your will, our will, and the desires, the pure desires of the heart, the ones God said, I'll give you the desires of your heart if you delight yourself in me. So that's such a big subject. I don't want to get into that today, but just think about it. If we're putting some linear footage to this, if you can even can it down to something for a conversation, what you see is our job is to be that seed and let God birth His purpose, because it's His purpose, not ours. We get to participate, co-labor. So think of it as something He does through us, and if we step into that from a place of childlike intimacy, excitement, exuberance, curiosity, affection, that's what that's that wonderful childlike spirit, not childish, that stuff, but childlike. When we do that, it just happens. Now, you need to walk with someone, right? And that's what we do. So it's not a book you can buy. I think that was a great thing. The timing was right. God helped people understand that this is something that is available to us. Mm-hmm. But the season has, we're talking years and years now. The season is where we are is, how do you actually live this thing out? Mm-hmm. And this is how it's done, and it's amazing. But it's a process. Mm-hmm. It's not a course. It's not some type of training. And I'm talking about purpose.
Yeah.
It's a big thing, but it's God working through you to achieve what He desires, His will on earth. And we get to be the surgical glove. He's the hand. Let's do brain surgery. We get to. That's awesome, right?
Yeah, I love the thought, and want to press into the thought that purpose is something that's born, and want to just encourage people that, as crazy as this might sound to those that are watching and listening, is that if you are truly willing just to be intimate with God, to press in, to pursue Him above your purpose, mm-hmm. He'll bring your purpose to bear fruit.
Absolutely.
In your life. That's what Jesus said. He who abides in me will bear much fruit. If you abide in Him, I'm the true vine, you're the branches. This is the biblical reference, because I think a lot of people go, where's this in the Bible? And you're like, well, here's where it is in the Bible. If He is the true vine and we are the branches, if we abide in Him, if we seek intimacy in Him, He produces the fruit. Or excuse me, bears the fruit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We're trying.
Big difference.
Yeah, we're trying to produce produce the fruit. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
We're trying to produce the fruit by behavior patterns and knowledge and theology, and we're saying that's not the path.
That's right. That's right. That's like saying we are Jehovah Jireh. We are the provider. Well, we're not. We're not, and it's not in Scripture. But yet, that's one of those things. It's familiar. We say it all the time. We get to glorify ourselves with it. We can even glorify God with it with our lips, and then later on, somewhere deep in our heart, we're going, "Look what I did! Look what I did! Look at the house I bought! Look at the career I did! I did it!" We're saying that to ourselves. That's a subtle place, not what you say to other people. Nobody's going to, with any maturity, but this is letting go of all of that to get to the place where you actually are a branch, and I've got that written down here to bring up that it is. We are the branch. We are a vessel. We are a conduit. This is the language we use, but it's also scriptural. It's not a labor or striving. It's just being clear, healthy, ready to go, and letting God do it through us. And you eventually will see the fruit. Now, the fruit, there's all kind of different references, but that's what this looks like. That fruit will be born from that seed if we just let it happen. Now, what we need to add to this before we get through this is that purpose is part of that is discipleship. And that's where we can really come in and help people. It's not going to happen through a book or a course or some Tony Robbins thing, and nothing against him. It has to be discipled. Because everybody there's so many nuances, and I know this from working with people for years, people who are now gone. You have to be able to walk with somebody intimately, stand up for them, help them remove strongholds, help them navigate the strongholds of others, help them to hear from God. There's so much here. But if you're not a hardhead like me, for example, willing to go all out for that person, it may never happen. But that's what we see in Scripture. That's what Jesus did. He discipled people, and he made them disciples, and they went out and discipled others. That's sort of the end game.
Okay.
So it's a process, just like a tree or that branch or fruit needs tending. It needs care. The seed needs water. Bible says some water, some plant, but only God knows how it grows. God has it all mapped out.
So the discipleship process, which take that for biblical language. On the flip side of that, and kind of a business talk, discipleship is mentoring, coaching, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing underneath it.
It's the same pill in every bottle. The bottle has a different label on it because they don't like the word discipleship in business culture. They don't like. In the church, they don't want to talk about life coaching. Yeah, but it's the same thing.
Yeah,
it's pouring your heart into somebody through your gift set and allowing them to just being honest, enforcing clarity, walking with them when they're down, lifting them up, etc. And it can take months, it can take years, but if we're all in, and that's what we do, our heart's in it. I mean, that's my particular role, but it is our role as an organization because we want to make a cultural change.
Is that your purpose? Your heavenly
it's his
value?
Purpose through me, one of them. Yeah, absolutely. But it's what we do, and you and I work together very well. And your purpose, mine, etc. To bring this about, and we're seeing great fruit from it.
Yeah, and I think the part of this that we close with is that this is where the one body, many parts comes to life.
That's right.
When you have your heavenly value meeting with his heavenly value, my heavenly value, her heavenly value, when that comes together, that becomes the church that transforms the world.
That's right. Then you're being the church instead of going.
Yeah,
you can go too, but be it first.
Yeah. Well, guys, this is huge. We're going to take a break here. We're going to continue with our second hour, but we just want to make sure that if you guys are looking to live this out in your own life, if you're looking to discover what your heavenly value is, your why, your purpose, your calling, if you're looking for whatever you want to call it, business coaching, mentoring, discipleship, that's what we do. That's what we do at Uprint. Again, we want to encourage you guys, uprint.life, YOUPRINT.LIFE. Connect with us there or get plugged into the Portable Faith community, wakeupmyfaith.com. Let's get started. We'll be back for more right after this. Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Kicking off a second hour here on the show, live from the Standard Glass Studios at Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7 FM. You got Matt Ham and Kevin Adams. We're the co-founders of YouPrint, a faith and personal development organization based right here in Wilmington, North Carolina. Coming to you just with, man, we had such a good first hour today, Kev. I just want to, the energy is good. I feel like I'm yelling, actually. I'm just like so fired up today. Woo! It's like Ric Flair came into the studio booth.
Wow.
It's stealing, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun. Anyway, I am a former, 1980s kid. I loved wrestling when I was growing up and self-promotion culture.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I can remember seeing his golden, glowing, pure white hair from, the 70, 60 yards downfield and at Gator games.
Oh, yeah.
He would always be on the sideline. This is back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And, anyway.
Good stuff, man.
I know Ric Flair.
Sorry,
I don't know him. No.
Sorry to get off track.
Yeah. Well, that's all right.
That's common around here sometimes.
You want to go ahead and...
No, I just want to shout out at our corporate partners before we jump into the segment here. We appreciate our corporate partners making this show possible, one of those being Century 21 Swalyer and Associates, our exclusive real estate partner. More than 30 years of experience in the real estate business here in southeastern North Carolina. I've heard the market's crazy right now. If you're buying, selling a home, make sure to look at Century 21 Swalyer, the Carolina's largest and most successful Century 21 agency, 910-256-0021. Also, Chris Riley and the good folks at Fountain Financial Associates. They are giving clients and families a better life and keeping promises. If you need any financial advice, make sure to give Chris and his team a call. Those folks are fantastic. In fact, going to see Chris after the show here. But 910-256-8882 is a way you can get connected with them. So I want to thank our corporate partners. You're getting ready to say.
Well, let's see. I don't even know what I was going to say, but let's try this.
Oh, here we go.
I see a little silhouette of a man.
You were saying.
It didn't work.
Kevin loves Siri.
Wait. This is funny, man. Check this out. Okay. Now, you probably already know.
I don't know.
I see a little silhouette of a man. It's not. It says go ahead. I'm listening. Man, this thing will finish the whole song for you.
Siri will finish Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah. I don't want to keep putting our listeners through that, but it's funny.
Okay.
You just say it in there. The other day it did it. It went, Scaramouche. It went through the whole thing. I'm like, whoa.
So
I saw it on YouTube, and I tried it, and I was floored. I thought it was just some. It's a weird thing.
It's amazing technology being able to do that. Speaking of Bohemian Rhapsody, I have not seen the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Have you?
I have.
What are your thoughts? Is it worth seeing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's well, my perspective on all that is just being my age. I can remember being in middle school and We Are the Champions was popular on the radio, and I remember the first time I heard it, and Queen and just who they were, and just so incredible, harmonic. Of course, Freddie Mercury. I think it's a great movie. Probably not. They really did a good job not getting too sexually graphic. I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
There's some difficult things there to deal with from a Christian perspective, but I think what's wonderful is you see a tortured soul. You see the heart of just a genius, just a family. Wow, and the music's fantastic. I mean, gosh, I don't know of a better voice ever. But yeah, man, go see it. Not a kid movie. But if you like Queen and appreciate the genius that God created in these individuals, I loved it.
Yeah.
Holly and I loved it.
Well, I did see an interview with I think his name's Rami Malek. I believe that's his name, the actor that played Freddie Mercury. Jimmy Fallon was interviewing him and just said you transformed, brought him to life on stage in such a powerful way.
Yeah.
And I think we're talking about in the first hour this concept of purpose. Okay, and when you look at someone like Freddie Mercury, right, and you see what he did, and you look at man, that's a guy that's living out his genius.
Absolutely.
And so whether or not, someone gives credit to God for whatever genius that they have or whatnot, what we're trying to do is encourage people that you have a similar kind of imprint on the history of the world that you get to pour out. And, every genius, every hero, they go through incredible adversity. I mean, for the little bit that I know is he was picked on as a child because of his, he had big teeth and they called him Bucky or whatever. And, all of these people, we've talked about Steve Harvey before, lived out of his car. I mean, you look at any of these, Garth Brooks, I mean, you look at, these are musicians, but any of these folks press through adversity.
Yeah, well, that's, I really, some people are going to disagree with me, especially in that sort of hard stance Christian-y perspective, but I mean, God created these people, right? And that's what we're saying is whether someone's tortured, and when I mean tortured, I mean they struggle with different things, and that's not our battle, that's up to the Lord. But we want to recognize the heart, the human being, the artwork that God made in people like Freddie Mercury, not the things that he struggled with. That's not our battle. Our battle is to understand and recognize what God did. And so we find that in the dark places of the world, not necessarily in the church building. So when you look in rock and roll and you see some amazing, it's so tangible, right, in that, or in movies maybe, but especially music. It's just wonderful, and you can feel. That's why when you listen to a Queen song, or you watch that Live Aid event, you can feel it.
You cannot deny genius when you see it.
That's right.
And the subtle difference to me with culture and with faith is one gives credit to an individual, whereas one gives credit to its creator, to God.
Sure.
That's the subtle difference.
I think what we're saying is that everybody has a genius in them, and whatever their struggle, that doesn't matter. That's between them and God. That's their struggle. Whatever that thing is, it can be anything. I don't want to go there because what we want to do is help people see God's genius. But when we look at people, to see them like that infant we were talking about earlier. Can you imagine Freddie Mercury, or I think his name is Farouk Balsara, his birth name? Could you imagine him as an infant cooing? That's before his teeth were huge, and before he could sing, and before he had all these struggles in his life. And I mean, I think they're legitimate things he struggled with. But he was also very gentle, very genuine and generous. And so we overlook all that because we go to the familiar. And, there's things in the movie I don't really want to see. Again, they did a good job with it. I don't want to focus on it, but this is a great case in point where if you look through, what you see is God's handiwork. And that's where we have to start with people. Not all this familiar bull crap. We need to be intimate, and we need to appreciate what God did. And that's why when we listen to We Are the Champions, or Bohemian Rhapsody, or any of that stuff, we can hear something beautiful that God made. It doesn't have to glorify Him to know that He did it. I'm not saying it shouldn't glorify Him. I'm saying a lot of people make that choice.
Yeah.
But it still does, because we see how good God is. Now, that's a perspective, I think, of a Christian.
Yeah. From a biblical perspective, I just hear this verse resonating in my heart saying that, through him all things were made.
That's
and
right.
in him all things consist.
That's right.
And so all we're trying to do is step into culture instead of being fearful about what we quite don't understand or what doesn't seem to give God glory.
Right.
Recognize God in it, recognize the genius in it.
That's right.
And speak life and encouragement and hope into that thing with a firm foot in the truth of the gospel. And that's what the world needs, I believe, in this generation and time, to awaken them to the fact that God is not your enemy. He's not opposed to you. You know, he's not oppressive.
To quote a Queen song, he's our best friend.
Love it.
Hear it going. Right?
I love it. I love it. Guys, you are listening to and watching Wake Up Our Faith. Matt Ham and Kevin Adams going to take a short break. We'll be back for more right after this. Oh, man. I'm not even going to give the regular intro. I just want to listen to some more Queen. Nick Craig. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh, man, that was awesome, Nick. Thanks for that. Kevin, that was cool, man. We were talking about, you guys are watching and listening to Wake Up Our Faith. And in the first segment of this hour, we were talking about Bohemian Rhapsody, about Queen. Now, and I got to say, Kevin on air tried to get Siri to sing the rest of Bohemian Rhapsody. And I tested it out during the break. The difference was,
you sang it.
I sang it.
I chickened out. I sang it the other day in my house.
Right.
You know, tried to be
Freddie Mercury.
Yeah. Wow. What a a gulf between that and what I could do. But it did the whole thing, and I was actually shocked. I'd just seen a snippet on, I don't know if it was YouTube or somewhere, and I freaked out because it did it. I'm glad we didn't do it on air because it
It's
takes
long.
it's most of the song.
Yeah.
But you did it because you, Matt Ham, are the quintessential performer, and you actually sang it. So guys, sing it.
Sing it.
Sing that first line, and Siri will play the rest of it for you. It's weird.
Oh man, that is so good. That is so good. So we want to give a quick shout out to our corporate partners before we get too much or to dive in too much into the segment here. One of those being the Honeycutt Group. The Honeycutt Group is our premier insurance partner here on Wake Up Our Faith. They're an insurance broker firm, family owned and operated for more than 10 plus years. Chad and his team, great group of folks there. Home insurance, auto insurance, life insurance, whatever insurance needs you might have. Make sure you call the Honeycutt Group, 910-338-1773. We get great feedback, Kevin, from all of our folks that we refer out and send to these people here, these partners. So we just want to encourage our partners that listen regularly. Man, keep doing what you do. Keep doing it excellently. We'll keep sending folks there for our listeners, for those who join in. These folks are the best. So continue to reach out to them. So we've been talking loosely today, not loosely, directly about purpose over the first segment today. We're kind of loosely diving back into that purpose conversation with this idea of Bohemian Rhapsody Queen, Freddie Mercury, seeing excellence, speaking excellence into culture, calling genius for what it is, and quit worrying so much about behavior patterns. Yeah, I think one of the things that man, fear is a crazy, crazy thing, and it predicates so much of how we navigate our lives. I mean, for the Christian person, it's like, oh, I'm afraid of that because they said the F word or whatnot. And we're not condoning to go out and use the F word all the time.
In Dublin, it's like saying mustard. I mean.
But I mean, don't be so afraid of it, right? Don't be afraid of it. But on the flip side of that, the world culture is afraid of God because it's this oppressive thing. He's going to take the good things from me, and he's going to make me, abide by the rules. And it's like, quit living by fear on either side of this equation. You'll never discover your purpose if you're living in fear, I guess, is the tie-in to this whole idea of purpose and heavenly value.
So we can dig back into that a little, get a little more serious. I love talking about music, and that's just, man, I loved it. I love that movie. Go see it. But one thing I do want to take a side note on here, and that is this idea that people, what human nature wants, and I'm talking about broken human nature. In other words, disconnected from God, wants a series of events that are random or cataclysmic, that just brought everything into being. And the reason, what that does is, so that what they say is, well, we want to believe in a power source or energy, and what that does is it depersonalizes God. So what we're saying is, hey guys, we hear your heart. We know there's something there, but guess what? And we have to use masculine. It's just a label, but we're using just a way that we can even describe and begin to understand his role as everything to us. But one thing we can say back for sure: God is personal. He's loving. He's real. He is very consciously aware of us. He made us. There's a personality there. And the reason that people don't want to engage him outside of, I'm not talking about the Christian fringes. There's a lot of goofy folks out there. I'm talking about people who truly want to have that relationship. And I think everybody would if they could just believe it. But the difference is people don't want to personalize God, because if they do, then they feel like that brings him down to their level, and then it becomes about his opinion, and they feel like they have to conform to his opinion. We don't want to live by the opinions of others, but it's different with God because he actually created us. And, people can argue it all day long. But the big reason that people do not want him to be personal and they fight against it is because then they have to conform to his idea. And that's hard for people. So we want to be God instead. So we'd rather act like it just randomly happened by explosions and different things, rather than actually being created by an idea. God is personal and so loving, the same way we love our own kids. Why wouldn't anybody want that?
Yeah. This brings back something.
That's the fear defined that you were talking about. That's what it looks like.
Sure. And I love the direction we're going here. I remember something one time. I can't remember the context of it, Kev, but it was along these lines of the difference between personal and customized. If you have a customized suit, or a personal pan pizza or whatever, you know what I mean? Like you think about this language and culture.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we don't want a personal God.
Right.
We want a customized God.
Right.
We want a God that we can put parameters around, which really feeds our ego, our opinion,
Right.
And what you're saying is when you get a personal God, there's this opinion that he has of you, and that's what people don't want to conform to.
That's right.
And so that's why
because they categorize him as human by default, by logic, by small-mindedness, and don't realize most anybody will agree there's a greater power. They love that kind of language. I don't like it at all because that's like your kid going to you, well, there's something living in my house and he pays my bills. Right. I mean, that's ridiculous. Yeah. It's intimate. We are just a mimic of God's extension. He made us for a lot of reasons, but in some reasons we get to have a family, so we can even begin to understand the nuance of that. So we're like a mirror of that relationship, and you can't deny that. And that's the thing, is that people just want they want the power of God, so they stay on that side of the fence and just call it source or whatever, or it.
Yeah.
But that's not right. I'm not beating people up. I'm saying that's not accurate. What they deny is that God is smarter. So they'll agree that he's more powerful, but once he becomes smarter, then you have to conform. But the great thing with God is he's perfect. He's the perfect Father. So why wouldn't you want to conform? It takes the load off. It's easier. It's not harder. Doesn't mean life's easier. It means you can get through it, but actually make it productive. That is incredibly powerful, and that's what will matter in 1,000 years.
Yeah.
But you can do it 1,000 seconds at a time. We help you do that. There's my plug. But it's for real. If you believe what we're saying, listen hard at it, and we'll walk with you.
As we navigate the show, I always get these little nuggets. The nugget that I have right now is God in a box. And it's funny if you think about it.
Like a Jack in the Box?
Yeah, kind of like a Jack.
Giggling.
Exactly. Yes, and my brain does not always go to healthy places. I'm thinking of God in a box, and the tune from SNL, the God in a Box. But it's the thing that
be a lamb and sit there a little while. Was that? I'm sorry. Dana Carvey. No, not Dana Carvey. David Spade.
David Spade, okay.
They would come in, and Jesus would come in, and they wouldn't give him a moment, or Moses would come in. This was back in the 90s.
Okay. I haven't seen that skit.
Oh, it's funny, man. Even Moses could come into the room. David Spade played the gatekeeper for some kind of executive.
Ah, gotcha.
And so he would say, well, Jesus would come in. I think it was Phil Hartman that played the part.
Okay.
And, he'd come in with like thunder and everything. David Spade would say, just be a lamb and sit down a minute, or be a deer.
That's funny, actually.
It's hilarious.
That is
anyway,
funny.
I didn't mean to sidetrack you.
No,
Keep going, man. God in a box.
I think there's a funny skit here. I think there's an opportunity because, inadvertently, what we do is we put God in a box. And it's like, I want my little God in a box, and I want to pull him out when I want him.
A little silhouette of a God.
Yeah. I see a little silhouette of my God. And, but we crank the box, and he pops out whenever we want him. And so we revisit him at our convenience. Right. And ironically, that's kind of how we treat him.
Yeah.
And so that's, anyway, we want to get that out of here. Guys, we appreciate you tuning in. We're going to be back for a couple more segments here. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams, Wake Up Our Faith. We'll be back for more right after this. Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith, the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. We're coming to you live from the Standard Glass Studios. Matt Ham and Kevin Adams every single Wednesday, 1 to 3 p.m. Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Rebroadcast every Sunday on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7 FM. WFBT from 12 to 2. Want to recognize our corporate partners as we kick off the segment, one of those being Physical Therapy Services of Wilmington. That's ptservicesofwilmington.com. Been serving southeastern North Carolina since 1983. Family owned and operated, more than 100 years of experience in their practice. They got some new offices up at Porter's Neck, offices at 17th Street as well. If you have any needs in regards to your physical therapy, they do a ton of stuff, man. They're branching in. Russ and those guys, they're doing some really cool stuff. So if you're having any type of injuries or anything you want to kind of press into, man, they're great. 910-763-8286 and tell them that Wake Up Our Faith sent you. We would appreciate that, and I know they would as well. So, Kev, we've been talking about purpose today, and we've kind of used this hour, these past couple segments, to talk through some of the cultural challenges that we face, and we've highlighted, like I said, the Bohemian Rhapsody with the movie out, Freddie Mercury, and kind of the Christian hesitation to jump in that direction, but also the hesitation in the world's perspective to kind of speak the personal side of God out into existence. So coming back full circle on this, I want to bring it back into this purpose conversation and wrap it up with some some thoughts so folks can kind of begin to put some context on it.
Yeah. Well, just to think of it this way, we started off earlier in the last hour with the idea of God is after intimacy, not familiarity. We cannot be familiar with him because there's just too much of him to put it in some kind of quantifiable visual. But intimacy and familiarity are two different things, kind of like a jar of salt versus a jar of sugar. They look the same from a distance, but they're not. So think about that. Salt sustains, preserves, magnifies flavor, retains hydration. You know all that. Sugar, and I'm talking about processed, refined sugar, not the healthy stuff. It's not good for you. It spikes your insulin. It's addictive. It causes obesity, et cetera. So, but they are two things that look almost exactly alike, maybe exactly alike from a distance. So think about intimacy and familiarity that way. Go for the intimacy, not the familiarity.
Yeah.
And that's go back and listen to the first part if you just tuned in and it doesn't make sense.
Well, we also have I'm going to cut you.
Yeah,
we also have an old podcast episode where we talked about salt and sugar, and I love this picture. I mean, this is one of the first pictures that you shared with me when we first connected. I mean, a couple of years ago, and it was so profound to me. And I really want to challenge folks to press in on this. Look at this from a different perspective. Step away. Take the picture, put it out there. Jar of salt, jar of sugar. One kills you, one adds, life. And I think that if you apply this, it reminds me. I was preaching a few months ago, and I was in the yard, and I was gardening, if you will, and a snake came out of the bushes, and it had that yellow black kind of color,
right?
And I said, at a glance, a poisonous, dangerous, coral snake and a corn snake, they look similar.
Sure.
But one will hurt you and one will not. And so in our own Christian experience, we have to step back and say, which are we, salt or sugar?
Right.
But you're using that to kind of draw this analogy even further into familiarity and intimacy as it relates to our walk.
You can apply it to a lot of things, but what we have to be careful about when we're Christians, and I shouldn't even say careful, but what we have to be discerning about is things that look good.
Appealing.
And they're very Christian-y, but they're soulish. They're from our own will, versus things that are pure, that are from that deep place of yielding to God and recognizing who you are in Him. Different thing from being a slave versus being a son
yeah.
or daughter. So that I just use that as an example because it's vivid. But going back to the idea of purpose to kind of create another linear or even a kind of a parabolic unearthing circular thing here. Purpose is also, think of it as it's a mosaic that comes together piece by piece as we learn total dependence upon God. So it's not a thing, it's a process, but one of the big things we use is, and I use it specifically in mentoring, but the puzzle box idea, and that God goes back through your life, and we work with people to pick up the pieces and plug them back in, and so all of this starts to unfold before you. But think of it that way, it's a journey, and it just, but it's like a mosaic. So you have to have a piece of it, and you have to be able to have a visual for a piece of it, and then you can start gradually stepping into it. But the process of intimacy teaches you total dependence upon God. Maturity in the world is total independence. Maturity to God is complete and total dependence upon Him. So big difference there. Maturing process brings our purpose about, His purpose for us, because then we are trustworthy with it. So.
Yeah. These are these pictures and these examples, I mean, they are so big and so deep and so powerful that you have to chew on them. You've got to slow down, and you've got to. What we're saying is if the canned, purposeful kind of online talk sounds good, soundbite culture, microwave, give it to me quick, take a pill to lose weight. If that's not working in your life, listen, if it's working and you're rocking and rolling, then hey, carry on. That's fine. If it's not working, if it's not giving you the transformation you desire, if it's not fueling and feeding your purpose, then you have to take a different path.
Yeah.
You have to.
Right.
You have to. And that's what we're saying is this is a different process by which purpose and your heavenly value is discovered. And it is a process. It's through intimacy. It's the more you yield to God, the more you pray, help me, help me remove the things that resist you. Right? The more you're willing to pray that kind of prayer, the more God reveals purpose and its birth. I mean, that's the thing. Is so step into this different process if you're looking for a
Well, you don't have to beg God. He wants to help you, and His goal is the same as yours in that wonderful place that you can live from. It may not be the same as your will. A lot of times it's not. Most of the time it probably isn't. We also know that Jesus, as a man, His will was not always the same as His Father's. That's why He said, I came not to do my own will, but the will of my Father. And also why He said, let this cup pass if possible. Otherwise, but nevertheless, let your will be done, not mine. That's really profound. But I just want to, you said these are big, deep ideas, and they are. And frankly, it's why some people throw rocks. I don't want to hear that. I can't listen to that guy or those guys or whatever. But this is life-changing stuff, and we're not going to shy away from it just because, it's hard to hear, or it's the kind of stuff that is really helpful. And you don't hear it in church because they don't have time for it. That's why discipleship is so important. Now, we call it all kind of things, mentoring, coaching, executive coaching, all of these different things. But it's the same pill in every bottle. It's just allowing God to work through your life, and we want to do that with you. So anyway, go back and check out those ideas again, and just really let it marinate, let it sink in, and that it's God wants this to happen for you. So it's what your legacy is.
I think the initial call is the call to honesty, and it's a call to pause, and slow down. And we live in such a fast-paced culture that nobody wants to. But when you do slow down and you ask yourself these difficult questions and you give yourself an honest answer,
right?
If something's missing, if there's more, get honest about what that is, and that's all we're trying to say is if you're willing to go there, it's like God is an ocean that we get to swim in, and you can say I'm afraid of the ocean, and you can play in the pool all day, but He created the ocean for you to embrace and enjoy. And, let's go and dive into it.
With a surfboard or a boat.
That's right. How we prefer it. You are listening to and watching Wake Up Our Faith. We've got one more segment here. Don't go away. We want to just encourage you guys, dive into this with us. We invite you to be a part of this. We're going to talk about more of how you can get involved in the next segment. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams. We'll be back right after this. Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith. This is a show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Matt Ham, Kevin Adam with you every single Wednesday. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I really appreciate our Facebook viewers and listeners and friends today jumping on. I love Kevin. I do most of this. I know he loves it. I'm speaking for him. I love folks kind of just engaging and giving your thoughts and sharing kind of, where you're coming to us from. And we love walking with people. That's why we did that. I mean, that's why we do what we do. We love people. We want to see you guys awakened. I mean, we have the saying around UPrint that's like, we want to wake up sleeping giants, right? We believe that you are a sleeping giant. God's gift in you, his purpose in you, your heavenly value is a sleeping giant that needs to be awakened and just, shake the world for good. And that's what we're here for. That's why we do this. So we just want to encourage you guys to continue to reach out. And when we ask questions, right? Engage. Where are you? I had somebody call the other day, which we offer a discovery call for folks who want to dive in. And this guy's like, hey, somebody gave me your number and I've had it for a year and I've hesitated to call. I'm like, what are you waiting on, man? What are you waiting on? I think a lot of people hesitate because they're afraid. Or I don't want to. I'm saying call us. Do not be afraid. Yeah, reach out.
Especially you, man.
Connect.
You talk to anybody.
I won't bite. I promise.
Now we do love people, and it's not an easy job. Right? That's
Kevin's like, I love people some days.
It's a wonderful. It's the most incredible thing in this life is to be able to love people and help them get to a place of freedom. And we both do that. Our company does that. Our Life Center nonprofit, it's all coming together. We are hijacking all this stuff back from business and the church, and we're going to go be the church. But doing that it's about glorifying God and getting people free to be who they are, and it's the most valuable thing on earth. So we do love it.
Yeah,
call us. But people are calling, and emailing, and texting, and
we get questions, and so I wanted to use this segment of the show to address one of these questions. Kay Greenwald is a member of the Portable Faith community, and she asked a great question the other day. We were talking about faith and what we call courageous patience, and it stems from this kind of language that we share. That's kind of our proprietary, this Uprint stuff. Is that, often a lack of faith is simply a lack of patience.
Yeah, I think you get confused sometimes between the two. So
and the challenge is be courageously patient with God as He's been courageously patient with you, lovingly patient with you.
Right.
And Kay asked this question. She said, "Is trust the same as patience, or are they different?"
I think they're different.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting because so let's dive into this a little bit, because what we're saying is if it's trust in the Lord with all your heart, have faith, and you're saying, well, that sometimes is just patience. So how do you begin to differentiate the two?
Well, so many things are connected. I mean, if you look at the fruits of the Spirit, and if you out of one side of your mouth say, we don't need to be led by emotions. God doesn't want us to be led by negative emotions, fear, anger, all that kind of stuff. We do have to have emotions, and they are a part of our faith. You can't have love, joy, peace, all that without an emotional connection and response to God. We have to feel. So, we have to go back into that with what are the feeling differences? What if you will, just to distill it down, what is the emotional difference between faith or trust and patience? And to me, if you're looking for a quick answer, patience, I see it not with some big definition, but it is to me, patience is rest. It's the action that comes from trust, but it's not trust per se. That is a different thing. Faith and trust are much more aligned. Patience is more, I would align that with labor to enter God's rest. I see patience as I can let go, which requires trust, but it's actually yielding and laying down and resting.
Patience is more of a mode. Is that kind of, is that, or no? Am I?
Well, I mean, I think we can all express it in whatever way we grab hold of it, a mental image of it. For me, it's like a room that I can go into and spend time with God. I don't look at it as a negative thing. That doesn't mean that I got it down and, there's a kid in my little neighborhood with some kind of thing on his car, and it sounds like a hornet. It's awful. And it's 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning, he'll be buzzing around and going so loud and it echoes in our apartment buildings, and I hate it. So I'm talking about patience. I'm not very patient with that. I want to throw an egg at him every time I see him go by, because I hate it. It's annoying. All right, that's sort of a surface level thing. You can get past it. But when we're waiting on God, which I consider to be an art, a great virtue, it's something you have to learn. That is where you can enter into His rest. And to me, that's a better definition of patience. But yeah, I would agree it's a mode. I think Christianity, faith, all of these things are an adventure and more of a mode. We're not perfect. We fail.
Yeah.
So a mode is a better way to describe it.
Yeah. Well, we certainly appreciate Kay reaching out and asking those questions. And like I said, these questions are what really challenge us to dive deeper, to uncover this, to stew on it a little bit. You know,
does that make it clear? I mean, I could throw mud all over it if I'm talking too much.
No. I think what you're saying, at least as I receive it, as I hear it, to kind of be the advocate for the audience or whatever, just because I'm leaning on you and your wisdom here. I think what you're saying is that faith, patience. Let me gather my thought here. Patience is kind of a part of faith, but it's not the entirety of it. So patience is this restful, peaceful state that we're in, which is required of faith, but it's not the entirety of faith. That's kind of how I heard what you were saying there. Is that fair? Is that?
Yeah, I think so. If faith is believing God, simply. That's it. If you not just in Him, but believing what He says, and that's you are stepping into that. A lot of times that requires that your stepping requires that you just lay down and rest.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're connected, but they're different. One is a focus on God. The other one's more about you.
Yeah, I think the way that I'm hearing it right now is that you can't have faith without patience. But it would be possible to have patience without faith.
Well, I think you can have faith without patience, but it definitely does not have the same
fullness,
result or fruit. I mean, you can be faithful, and believe that Jesus is your Savior and be saved, but you may live a life that is unfruitful. But when you have the virtues and the things that come with maturity and refinement, patience. That's why it's a virtue.
Yeah.
But it's anyway.
I like that. No, I like that a lot. That's super. That's really helpful there.
But they are different.
Yeah.
Maybe just to clarify to Kay, I think it's Kay.
No, absolutely.
So thanks for the question.
Yeah, certainly. We appreciate you reaching out, Kay. And I want to kind of close this up, and we're getting ready to wrap up here. Guys, I certainly don't want to appear like I've got this figured out. I know Kevin's the same way.
Sure.
Even the other night, I woke up at like 12:30 a.m. and it was just like this bombardment of just negative energy and negative thoughts, and it was that doubt, right? The enemy operates in these ways that he wants to get you, and he wants to get you off track, and he wants to isolate you.
Sure.
That's on the tail end of a tough week, some sickness at the house, and just he's trying to rattle you. We live in an unshakable kingdom.
Wet noodle.
Right, I know. and that morning, Kevin, when I was awake, and I get our text from our community, like I do every morning, like our folks do. The text said this. It said, "Struggling with doubt? ? Never forget, you are God's idea. His love for you is far bigger than your ability to exaggerate it. Where He leads, there is no risk." And that was beautiful, man. That's what God had given you. And that morning you poured it out into our community. But I, as your brother and your business partner and your friend, I needed it that morning. And so what I want to say is this is the medicine that we are living by and taking as well.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage folks that, we deeply desire to walk with you, to see you awaken to God's purpose or your heavenly value in your life. Yeah. We just want to invite you guys into this. There's no agenda. There's no pretension, no fear. None of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it from a governmental type structure here, we are creating something that is not a business or a church. It is kind of a church without walls, but it's also a business or a mission with a business. So these things support that.
Yeah.
We help people who can't afford it, but we also walk with people just in the deepest ways who can.
Yeah.
So this supports that, in other words.
Yeah.
Portable Faith Community.
Thank you guys for being a part of it. Have a great day.